And we are live. So, welcome to episode 83, I think, of An American Werewolf in New Jersey. I am the American Werewolf, and in the house tonight, we've got Bug Bengal.
Hello.
Who decided to check out of the Roach Motel for a little bit and come and hang out with us and talk some Del Toro. And then we've got John Funny Shoes Alvarez, 11D, extra wide. Just hanging out a little bit, also taking a break from shining some shoes to shoot the breeze a little bit with some Del Toro. I want to make a quick programming announcement. This podcast, if you catch it on the replay, is now streaming. Well, it's live streaming now on Twitter. So I'm streaming on Facebook Live. We're streaming in YouTube Live, and we're actually streaming American Werewolf in New Jersey right there in the Twitter feed. So if you're going through your Twitter feed and you see the live stream happening, stop in and say hello real quick.
Absolutely.
Okay. This is our very first movie that takes place in the sewers. I don't know that it's a common setting, and usually when a movie goes down into the sewers, nothing good is going to happen because most of those movies turned out to be god awful. And I remember a lot of 70s type movies like Alligator, and the various whatever that take place down there. They're usually not the greatest movies. This one in particular, and we were talking a little bit about it before we got started, is better than that, but it's not the greatest movie in the history of film, even for Guillermo Del Toro. And that is Guillermo Del Toro's Mimic. So if you guys are ready, shall we get it going?
Let's get it going.
Boogie woogie. So this movie is based on an old 40s science fiction short story by an author whose name I can't recall. One of you may remember it. If not, that's fine. But it's the story of basically a man who recognizes or sort of scopes this really sort of deformed man in his neighborhood. I think it's set in New York City or something along those lines. And what ends up happening is at some later point, long story short, the police go to this man's apartment or this deformed man's apartment and find out that he's not really a man, but he's a bug who is able to mimic the features of a human being, in some sort of defense mechanism. And as the police are breaking down the door, they see that it's not a human being, but also all these sort of smaller bugs are escaping out the window, presumably back into society, and no one is ever able to catch them again. And so it ends on this sort of horribly ambiguous note. Where these things are going to meld back into society. At first glance, you're not going to be able to recognize them for what they are. Not to mention the fact you've got a man-sized bug out there hanging out in your neighborhood. And who knows what that means from there, which is kind of a scary thing. Hold on a second. We've got some comments here. Eric is in the house. And he says, evening, I haven't seen this since high school, and all I remember is the scene where the two teens are taken out in the subway. I think, yes, these are 90s movies.
Spoiler, Eric!
So they are, especially, the 90s were a gritty time of unsparing deaths and gore and slime. And it was very easy to get the bite put on you. And Del Toro, I think at this... I think Del Toro at this point had already come out with Kronos, which is a fantastic Del Toro movie. I think his first film. He had then done The Devil's Backbone, which I think is one of the great haunted or ghost stories out there, although it's probably one of the lesser known. That kind of stuff. I think this was what he did here was before Blade 2. So this is somewhere around his third effort. We were saying before we got started, this is not his best movie, but I'll take 75%. I'll take a Del Toro movie over about 75% of everything else. Is it Pan's Labyrinth? Is it Pacific Rim? Is it, any of these other things that, these monumental things that he's done? No, but it's still a damn solid movie, I think.
I better than half of the MCU films. I'm going to say it right now.
Oh, yeah.
That thing held together pretty well throughout the whole thing, even though it was very, filled with cliches out the yin yang, but it still held together as a story, beginning, middle, and end, and it didn't rely on effects to carry anything. It was still telling a story.
Well, Del Toro is like pizza. Even if it's a bad Del Toro movie, it's a Del Toro movie. Or not one of his better works. And that's one of the things I rediscovered when I watched it again, because I haven't really seen it in a couple of years. And I went, oh my God, how good is this movie compared to other movies that were coming out at the time? It kind of reminded me of there was another movie at the time called The Relic.
Yeah, it gets confused with that a lot with Penelope Ann Miller and Tom Sizemore.
Right. And that's when I was like, I like this so much better.
Yeah. Well, we've got Eric who says, and also Mira Sorvino, who certainly trumped, no disrespect to Penelope Ann Miller, but we've got Mira Sorvino that we're talking about here tonight. And, that's, I miss her a great deal in the films. Because in the 90s, she was great. With Romeo and Michelle, The Replacement Killers. She did Replacement Killers with Chow Yun-fat. That's just a great action movie. She did this. I mean, she was riding high, and unfortunately, because of the Weinsteins, she's no longer, I think, in acting. And then we've got Dan here. He says, hey, and haven't seen this in a while either. I hadn't seen it in a while. I think I found a $5 copy for the whole trilogy, like all three movies. This 2 and 3 have nothing to. I found it previously viewed over at like Books A Million, and 2 and 3 have nothing to do with Del Toro or anything like that. I've never seen them.
This is my first time watching it, to be honest.
Oh, really?
Never watched it back in the day.
Okay.
I was more of a film bug back then than I am now, but at the time I was all taken up with indie movies and very focused on the Coens and Tarantino. It just slipped by me. I didn't really even know that Guillermo Del Toro did it, and this is my first time watching it. And good stuff and bad stuff, yeah, definitely.
I think my first exposure to Del Toro was Blade 2. That's where I think that's my favorite of the Blade movies. And the first one's a solid movie. The third one's a 90-minute music video. But it is what it is, and it's still a Blade movie. I love those Blade movies. I have them all on Blu-ray. But this isn't a bad movie. It gets confused with that movie, The Relic, but I think this is better. It's darker. It's more gross. You've got fantastic practical effects from the great Rob Bottin. Who's no longer working in film anymore. My understanding is that he's such a perfectionist that it actually makes him physically ill. Like it would like adversely affects his health when he, is working, because he gets so stressed, because of his level of perfectionism that, well, there you go. I think conversely, on the other hand, I have this T-shirt that just says mediocre, and I think we both know Todd. Todd had this picture of a Greek philosopher, and it just says mediocrities, and then on the back it says, "Man, good enough." Mediocrities. I'm not at that Rob Bottin level, but I mean, we've got a lot to thank Rob Bottin for. I mean, his breakout was The Howling. He was involved with The Fog. He did The Thing, RoboCop, Total Recall. He was associated with Star Wars, A New Hope. He was partially responsible for the cantina scenes. I think I read somewhere that he's the tallest member in the Cantina band. So the next time you see A New Hope and you're looking in the Cantina scene, whoever the tallest guy is playing the musical instrument, that's Rob Bottin. He got himself in A New Hope, which is something that very few people can say. Bottin put himself in the hospital working on The Thing. Yeah, I believe it. I believe it.
It shows in the movie.
Yeah. I mean, that's a fantastic thing when you think about it. I mean, because we've talked about Del Toro before and how much he's a fanboy of his own shit. I mean, Del Toro gives a shit. He doesn't. Del Toro doesn't phone it in. And clearly neither does Rob Bottin. And unfortunately, we were talking about this also before we went on the air, how this was, according to Del Toro, his worst filmmaking experience because of blatant interference by the Weinsteins.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. I think also they spread the story a little bit too thin. That line from Lord of the Rings, you feel like butter scraped across too much bread. I think trying to stretch this really good sort of noir sci-fi short story into a feature length, it just ran out of steam after a while. It started out pretty strong, and if it had stayed closer to the short story, it would have done better, but it would also been about 45 minutes.
He made a short. No, that's what he did. He made a short film. Originally, when he submitted it, it was the
I heard that
wanted all the gore put in.
Yeah, it wasn't scary enough, according to Weinstein.
According to them. But the point about it was to talk about evolution and the possibility of these creatures now evolving ahead of us. And that was intellectual. I mean, the reason why I really liked the movie, even with all of its flaws, is the fact that you did have two people that were that committed to it. All right, if we got to repaint this turd, it's going to be enamel. It's going to be gorgeous paint we're putting on.
My understanding is that, and I have it on DVD, the trilogy, but if you actually get the Blu-ray, whatever, if you ever see the Blu-ray, it has a director's cut on there, which makes Del Toro, it makes him feel a little bit better. But my understanding is that there's only 6 additional minutes, so I don't know what he could have added in those 6 minutes that would have, soothed, the burn there, that he got from, working with the Weinsteins.
It could have been reshuffling the edits a little bit. I thought some sections of the movie just went on a little bit too long, but it's still a good effort. I will give it props. The feel of the movie is great. The cinematography is great.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It feels like it should be a better film noir sort of thing than it is. At least it makes effort to be that. So I will still give it a C+.
Yeah, I'd give it a C+, B-. I'd be a little more generous, but okay.
And even with it was in the modern setting, I had that feel of a Blade Runner in it.
Yes.
With the lighting, there was a lot of blue, there was a lot of this, there was a lot of dark shadows with neons in the background, and I'm going, this is really, very atmospheric.
Yeah, Del Toro gives a shit. The
sets were good. I thought the tunnels kind of looked pretty good from the descriptions I've read of the mole people and layer upon layer of old train lines in New York. It looked like it was believable.
Well,
the surface stuff wasn't so believable. That it's Toronto.
You also had
underground. It looked good.
You also had a really solid cast.
Yes.
You had Mira Sorvino, you had F. Murray Abraham, you had Charles S. Dutton, you had Josh Brolin. I forgot Josh Brolin was in this.
Yep.
Norman Reedus makes a quick 5-minute appearance in there as like the the cadaver tech. He's just some punk smoking cigarettes. You get the impression he's in my band. He's the bass player in my band or something like that, and you get the impression that the autopsy job is like the second job, like this guy is, more committed to playing bass than he is. So, I mean, you've got some really solid people in here. Giancarlo Giannini, is really good. Everybody seems like they're giving it their best. When John started talking about shots, I mean, you open up to this hospital. I mean, that's just a beautiful way.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful opening shot.
And
there's this disease called this disease called Stickler's disease that only attacks children, and it's a very heart-wrenching scene. I'm not usually moved by this sort of thing, but it's an entire ward full of dying children.
Yep.
And you've got that scene where the one doctor is taking Mira Sorvino, who's a scientist, through the ward, showing them these deaths, and this one mother is just, she's laying on it, and the children can't breathe. It's this horrible way of dying, like they're very actively struggling to breathe, and the one mom is just praying and crying, and her the kid is right there in the bed with her, and dying, and it really, you're like, geez, that's a powerful flex, like getting started like right out of the front. So they're asking Mira Sorvino for help, anything that she can do. And what Mira Sorvino does is, and there she is, Mira Sorvino, she decides to breed a specific type of insect, which she releases into the population, into the sewers of New York City, because it's the cockroaches in New York that are spreading the disease. And I couldn't get a bigger shot of the overlay here, but that contraption that she had that released the bugs out there, I just thought that was like a really cool design. You could have just come out with some clear glass, or something, and release these things, or some sort of trap where you sort of slit the top off and it kind of moves out, like those humane traps that they make nowadays. But they had this really intricate sort of design, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. And another beautiful shot where it's just kind of very well lit in the sewer, and then miraculously 6 months later, Mira Sorvino is kind of a mini celebrity for her 15 minutes. Because there hasn't been a case of this disease. No child has died of Stickler's disease in 6 months in New York City, and they're kind of declaring that the worst is over. Hold on.
Box were kind of seemed like a nod and a wink to Hellraiser, kind of, with that the intricate box just signaling that what she's releasing is more than a simple bug, or those little details. I thought I appreciated those a lot. And as it was opening up, I was like, I kept thinking, oh, I Am Legend. In the back of my head, it's like, oh, this is Will Smith's going to show up any minute now.
I was just glad because the one doctor works for the CDC, and then you've got Mira Sorvino, who's kind of like this scientist, and I was just glad Dr. Fauci didn't show up, and insert himself into. Really, Dr. We've got Dr. Anthony Fauci here. He's got a few words for us, but maybe the rebuke here comes in the form of F. Murray Abraham, who's sort of a purist, who thinks that what she's done is unforgivable, inserting a new species just sort of into the wild, into the sewers, and that's it. We just let them go, and that's it. And then they're supposed to die inside of 6 months. And so they kill all the cockroaches, so on and so forth. But of course, that's like the first 10 minutes of the movie. It's actually pretty well written in this part. The first act is pretty well put together. Hold on a second. Eric says, Rob Bottin worked on 2 movies that Mike really likes, The Thing and The Howling. Okay, well, not so much The Howling. Yeah, but he did do some damn good work. Charles S. Dutton. Yeah, he was really, really great in this, and we're going to get to that in a minute. Now, the problem is, of course, that, these things haven't died. And then I think, what do you jump, 3 years?
Yeah,
pretty much.
3 years jump, and now these two, the scientist and the CDC, Mira Sorvino and the CDC guy are a couple, and they're trying to have a baby, or I don't know if they're married or whatever, but
it was the 90s.
Yeah, they're kind of together, and something's going on outside Giancarlo Giannini's apartment. Because he's like a shoe shine guy who works like in the subway systems. and his son Chewie is in the autism spectrum, and Chewie's sort of looking out of his window when he sees funny shoes. Some funny businesses go, oh yeah, and there's that one scene where they get the Korean priest.
Dude, that was a good scene. Yeah, that was good when he couldn't fit him down the drain. I just started giggling.
Boom. Boom.
Yeah, his rib cage prevents him from being. I think it just breaks him eventually, doesn't he? He just breaks him. Whatever you hear, this crunching and crackling because he goes into this sewer grate.
Where's the red balloon? Because it was never that gross as trying to fit this guy into the small sewer grate.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what ends up happening is it starts introducing all these little small characters like Captain Big Teeth over here.
Yeah.
Who these kids who are trying to sell Mira Sorvino these weird bugs because they hang out in the sewers.
Yeah.
The sewer.
Was where the movie lost me. These Bowery Boys thing with the buck teeth and the strong Bronx accent. I was like, come on, dude, really? Is that how you see America? Is that how you see New York? God damn.
Well, I didn't get all that defensive about it. All right.
I did. I was
really?
I lost me, man. I'm like, no, don't do this.
I disagreed with that because that to me actually made it more. I've seen too many kids come walking on. They're from the Bronx, but they're talking with perfect dialect. These guys, at least, even with the buck teeth and the messy hair, and were at least close to being what your normal kids sound like.
This was back in the day, though, when a kid. I don't think you could do that today. Well, maybe you could. You would have to make a hard R movie for a kid to get the chomp.
Oh yeah.
But these kids are paying. Mira Sorvino's paying them like $10.
And she brings.
And she finds a baby. Now, what the hell kind of baby? Something's off right there. Look at the size of the baby. It's the size of her hand.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, the hell with this. No, that ain't happening.
This is not my fault.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, then she finds out, it's the Judas bugs, and that's a baby, and there is sort of a ham-fisted explanation for how they never really get into how these things have evolved in 3 years from bugs that were half that size to the 6 feet tall sort of things.
Yeah,
that's a little. I remember listening to the explanation, and I'm like, I don't understand what they just said there. I don't get that. Okay.
I believe the technical term is called jibber jabber.
Yeah.
We'll fill it up with a whole bunch of, so we sound like we know what we're talking about, but
but you don't work for the CDC, so who gives a shit? Nobody's gonna.
Actually, that's like one of the things about the movie. I love the fact that it started off that they were trying to help and still caused a problem.
Yeah.
That to me is an amazing touch.
It's Jurassic Park.
Yeah, right. Exactly. F. Murray Abraham is Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum. Yeah. Like life finds a way.
Max von Sydow.
Yeah. Now but somehow it works when Jeff Goldblum says it. Life finds a way. Like they never explain shit either, but somehow we're all over Del Toro shit for like doing this, but we totally ate it up from Spielberg.
No roughing, nothing, my guy.
Jeff Goldblum's a smartass. F. Murray Abrams being like a father, and he's like,
yeah.
And Jeff Goldblum's like, hey, you know what? You fucked up. I don't know how to tell you this.
No,
but you fucked up.
Yeah, he's a little bit too stern, I guess, as a father figure. But I guess
that let's go smoke a joint. I'll tell you how bad it is. He's the laid back father figure.
Jeff Goldblum. But all right, so what ends up happening, they end up having, the kids get the chomp going down there because they think that they're going to get all this money, trying to find more of these bugs because I think they made $10.
Mm-hmm.
They go down there and that's just it, and it's really kind of gross. And it's violent, and it's kind of graphic. They're really unsparing. These kids just get it right in the neck.
That was a big surprise to me. I always thought one of them was going to survive.
Considering the ending, it's a little. He's a little bit harsh with his minor characters.
He could have been more harsh with the major characters, and I want to get to that at the ending. He was a little. I think he was a little too sparing.
I think the Rock got beat up pretty well though.
Who?
The Rock.
Who's the Rock?
What's his name?
Charles Dutton.
Charles Dutton, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
From that TV show Rock.
Yeah, Rock.
Oh, the Rock.
He was the Rock before the Rock was the Rock.
Colin was that was Colin's favorite show, Rock. He used to watch Rock all the time.
Yeah.
So they we end up going down there. We get introduced to the Josh Brolin character, whose name is actually Josh, I think. It saves time. And he goes down there with the doctor, and next thing you know, they're all down there in the sewers trying to find evidence of these bugs. And it's the boyfriend, and it's the doctor, and Charles S. Dutton. Now, I enjoyed Charles S. Dutton in this because he was like a grounding character.
Mm-hmm.
He was just like the everyman.
Yeah.
This kind of guy who was just like, what the hell are we doing down here? This doesn't make any kind of goddamn sense. He added some humor. There was, because you needed it, because this was kind of a bleak movie. It's gory and it's
fooling around when he starts describing this as my subway. This is my elevator. This is my dark and scary tunnel with homeless people in it.
Well, one of my favorite scenes is when they go down to the subway platform and they're looking for stuff, and he's getting his shoe shined. Yeah. And you're meeting all the other characters, which I thought was brilliant. But then when they found everybody like scattered and guts, what the fuck happened? How am I fucking supposed to know what the fuck? When he goes off, I was howling.
Yeah.
I've known too many cops in my life as friends, and I'm like, that's exactly.
Because the creatures are putting shit on the ceiling.
Yeah.
Somehow all the bowel movements are on the ceiling, and the guy looks at Charles Dutton. He goes, "Have you ever seen anything like this before?" What the hell are you asking me if I've ever seen some shit? Do I look like I've seen some shit like this before? Hell no, I haven't seen any shit like this before.
That was
what a fucked up place is this?
Funny.
Yeah, what do you call it?
The most ridiculous thing ever.
He's like,
I sat there realizing, like, yeah, that's poop on the ceiling. Yeah,
but that's the point. I mean, it's moments like that he could do that, because in my head I'm going, that's exactly what I would have said.
Yeah, back then, yeah.
You asking?
Yeah, he's like, there must be some big elephant ass motherfucker up there.
Unbelievable.
That's
unbelievable.
It's pretty good. There are holes in the story, but by and large, it's a pretty enjoyable movie.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's one of those ones you could just lay on the couch, turn out the light, watch some Mimic for a little bit, and just kind of turn your brain off. It's worth the watch. I should say, and I should have said this at the beginning. It's available right now on HBO Max. If you're looking for it, I found, like I said, a cheap copy of the trilogy for like $5. Eric says, very rare do you see kids that age killed in horror. It's usually teens that I remember being pretty brutal. I love Charles S. Dutton in Alien 3. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, and the Johnny, the Depp Christopher Walken movie, Nick of Time. I haven't thought about that in a long time. Shit. Yeah. And Eric is going to be, if anybody's watching, Eric's going to be on Marty's program at 9:00, talking about Alien 3. So I'm gonna go check him out there and see what that's about.
I was actually very, very lucky. I was getting an award about 20 years ago 20 years ago, last September.
Okay.
And Charles Dutton was on the panel.
Oh, right on.
Oh, really?
I talked to him for like about 20, 25 minutes. Nicest guy in the world, but intimidating as hell. Until he
looks like a big solid,
And the thing is, he's shorter than me by like about 2 inches. But
he's like a fire plug.
He just looks at you, and then he goes, "Man, that was a good speech," and started. I'm like, "Oh shit," because he just has that look of just like, I'm in the room. It's my presence. That's such a control, and especially for the part that he's playing in this as the everyman. He's around some big stars, or I don't want to say pretty stars, but some of them were, Mira Sorvino. Sorry,
he holds his own,
and in some cases better.
I was just about to say maybe he steals the scenes.
Yeah.
You know, he kind of steals the scenes.
That's
he plays a great disapproving cop.
actor.
Yeah, he's annoyed. He doesn't want to be down there because that one guy's rubbing it in his nose. You know, they need you for some overtime. Because there's also like this class argument. You know, he looks at these people as like being from uptown. You know, they don't understand what's going on in the regular world down here with us. You know, regular people. You know, these are big, you know, scientists and government people, and you know, he's got that kind of attitude.
Right.
You know, which is a bit deserving because they do kind of screw him over, and you know, you get the impression that the boyfriend like selects him specifically to, you know, be the guy to be their tour guide down there. So you know, there is some deserving animosity there going on.
And he did have a weapon.
He had a Glock. So all right.
He's definitely the working class hero of the ending of the movie.
Yeah,
he ends up doing what the scientists never would have done.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did, and he had a good death. That was a good death scene.
Yeah,
when he sacrificed. What ends up happening? They all get trapped down there in this subway. It's just a mishmash of people down there. Manny, the shoe shine guy, is looking for his son, who's sort of, you know, wandered off one night. And I'll be honest. I mean, those scenes where they were in the car, they were kind of scary. When those things were slamming in there, and then they realize they have to rub themselves in the secretions, and you're like, oh man, Rob Bottin, like really, you know, he went the extra mile there. There was,
and then with the appearance of Norman Reedus, and then there's wiping all that goop all over them. I'm just sitting there going, you know, Walking Dead.
Yeah. I mean, these really are good practical effects.
Yes, they are.
That's something, man. I mean, you would have to have a very special project to get somebody, you know, who cared enough nowadays, maybe a Del Toro, you know, or a Ridley Scott or something like that, or, you know, maybe one of the guys like Eggers or Ari Aster, you know, the people that we know give a shit, to have creature effects like that. They find out that these things are able to mimic, at least on short notice, the appearance of people, although it's never explained how. But these are just stunning. That's a scary monster.
Yep.
And this is, to me, what separates it from that movie, The Relic. The Relic creature was 90s CGI. Yeah. And even this movie shows its limitations.
Right.
When they switched to CGI. You know, because there's only so much they could have done at the time, and there are clearly scenes where you're like, oh, that's okay. But, you know, it's not their fault. It's the 90s. It's what you have. And this wasn't a movie that had a huge budget.
Right.
You know, because clearly you're maybe 3 years away from like Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter, where these huge budget movies, you know, where, you know, they're, you know, giving you as much money as God to, you know, go out and make my movie. This movie clearly had less. There are all kinds of production problems from the Weinsteins, but Del Toro still manages to pull off an above average.
It was the great age of the indie film and films trying to look indie, and Weinstein's were the best at that.
In the scene where Mira Sorvino was going over the one bug that they found, like you said, you know, it was the size of her hand.
Yeah.
And the main creature came in and took the bug.
Yeah.
And you never saw the complete creature, but it was a shoulder. It was a silhouette. This is a good part of storytelling and a good part of Del Toro as a director.
Yeah.
Having no money and still all of a sudden making that hair on the back of your neck stand up.
Yeah.
Type deal. That's a good, and you can tell where somebody else added in a writing that he had to work with.
Yeah, he did that scene with shadows, and minimal lighting and claustrophobia because the room's kind of cluttered.
Yep.
You know, the only thing that's standing between Mira Sorvino and that monster is that table.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, and it just, you know, even and then it's up on the ceiling. She adds like a third dimension of, you know, like height, which you hadn't considered before. And oh shit, it's up there, you know, and she's not even thinking to look up. you know, and then when she
But she
turns,
would.
it just goes right out the window, and you're like, "Fuck, that's yeah."
I mean, even that clicking sound that the autistic boy
Yeah.
was making,
Yeah, with the spoons.
just that little sound
Yeah.
was enough to go, because it was so different and disturbing.
Yeah.
And then when you see what it is, I said, of course that's what the noise it's going to make. But it got you, you know, in your gut.
Yeah. He wants
That
to know, was
filmmaking
this
going
Del
all the way
Toro's?
back to the Universal films where you're just doing so much with so little.
Yeah. Yeah. Same with Hammer. They weren't getting a lot of budget for those Hammer movies, and they were churning out some scary shit. Was this Del Toro's first American movie? I'm inclined to think that it might be, but I don't recall. I don't recall specifically it made mention of it when I did. I did a small amount of internet research. I don't recall that necessarily being the case.
Well, Miramax supposedly saw Kronos and invited him over to do this movie, and he was so. This was the movie was supposed to be part of a trilogy. There were supposed to be 3 different writers with 3 different movies, and it was all dealing with creatures in New York subways, type deal. And it's when Bob Weinstein read it, oh, we got to stretch this out to a feature film, you know, that type deal. But they invited him over to just give him that idea.
Oh shit! Hold on a second. Eric says I wasn't a big fan of Pacific Rim. I love Pacific Rim. That's for us that are a little bit older, that grew up in that age of Godzilla in the rubber suit and like space giants and Ultraman. You know, and that's an homage. You know, that's just a love letter to like all those all that shit that we watched every day coming home after school.
And Hellboy's just brilliant, man. He knows how to spin a comic book into a movie. My goodness.
Yeah, he's cool. He's clearly a comic, you know, fanatic.
Yes.
You know,
and Idris Elba can give a speech. You know, I'm sorry, he can make some dialogue anybody else would do it and make it kind of stiff. Idris Elba, you know,
if you make me give a shit about Charlie Hunnam, you know, you're an appreciable fucking director, because otherwise I could give a fuck. You know.
So what do you really feel, Mike?
Well, I mean, you know, it's just, you know, he's still walking like he's in Sons of Anarchy, and you're like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah.
You know, you're not Jax Teller anymore, dumbass. You know, and that show, that's a whole separate conversation. Yeah, the epiphany I had about anti-heroes, you know, and television programs where there are just absolutely no likable characters. I actually arrived at that conclusion about 10 or 15 years before that, maybe, when I was homesick watching, this was in the days when On Demand first popped up. And I went through about 3 consecutive episodes of The Sopranos.
Right.
And I'm like, every one of because I wasn't watching it every Sunday, you know, with like a week's gap in between this 50-minute thing. You know, it was like one right on top of the other. And I'm like, every one of these people are just fucking awful. Yes. You're murderers and rapists, and you know you kill women, and you're just evil motherfucker. Every single one of you. But you know, it's like in writing, the way that you get to, you know, they humanize these people, you know, and then you actually do that by putting them up against somebody worse, you know. So like Tony Soprano, and then his mother, you know, Tony Soprano, and then the guy from New York.
You
know, who's exactly the same.
They're going to be in situations that we all are familiar with, so we relate to them, and then you start hoping for some type of redemption. But especially in The Sopranos, that redemption never comes ever. They're always double down on their evilness.
On their evil, yeah.
But they're pulling you in with the hope of, there's going to be redemption, and nope,
never happened.
And there's a couple of moments where the ones that are innocent don't get pulled in on that show. There's the episode where his shrink got brutally raped.
Yes, and she was ready to call out the dogs.
And her shrink turned around and said, "You got your revenge. He's right there. You could ask him, and he would take care of it for you." And at the very end of the episode, when he goes, "Do you want me to help you?" and she said, "No," and they went right to the credits. I remember watching that show, and my dad had just had a stroke, so I was over, you know, helping with Dad and my mom and I were watching. We were sitting on the edge of the seats, and when he said no, and I went to the credits, my mom went, "Oh fuck!" And I'm like, "Mom,
all right,
Mom,
you know." But
that's not how you raised me. Jesus Christ.
actually, I think she did. But
Maybe she did. All right. We didn't know any mob bosses back then, so you don't know until you know.
Paul? Have you forgotten King Tut?
But well,
I'm kidding.
what ended up happening? I mean, that moved on from there to Sons of Anarchy, and again, another show like that where everybody just doubles down on the fucking evil. And then by the time I got to this recent show, Mayans MC, like I noticed by like the 4th episode in the 1st season, you were rooting against the U.S. government and you were rooting for the drug cartels and the Zapatista communists. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening here? I'm like, what kind of bullshit is this?
Well, that I blame on Breaking Bad because you had the guy who was making the drugs.
Yeah, he was another one.
They went, oh, people respond to evil characters. So instead of doing that dance of pulling you in, hoping for redemption, and then disappointing you, it's just, here's evil characters, and here's more, and here's more, and you get sick of it. By the time I was done with Walter White, I was just like, okay, I get it, you're bad.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing to bring it back to actually the movie. Because Mira Sorvino was the exact opposite. She was trying to do something to help.
Yep.
But you can honestly say she's an evil person. Because she created the next species.
Yeah, unintentional.
She didn't know what she was doing.
Wait, you're saying she was an evil character or was
not?
No,
you could say she was evil. Absent-minded of her, not aware of it. But she did an evil act.
Yeah, she
by
created
helping
evil.
people.
That's the sci-fi trope that goes all the way back to Godzilla.
Frankenstein.
Yeah,
Frankenstein.
Well, that's the F. Murray Abraham says something to her. She goes, "You still disapprove?" And he goes, "A couple of years ago, without question, I would have said yes." He goes, "But today, I have 2 grandchildren that are probably still alive, thanks to you."
Right.
They answer that. He touches on it briefly. Del Toro touches on it in the script very briefly. He's like, I'd be a huge hypocrite if I were to sit here and still point the finger at you, after all this time. She saved a lot of people. It just wasn't, it wasn't a free lunch.
Exactly.
It wasn't a free lunch.
Every action has an equal.
It has it. Yeah.
Yeah. And he should have emphasized that a little more. That was disappointing when we get to the end.
Yeah, but he might have, and it could have been cut. It could have been argued. That's
there are 2 more movies. So.
Yeah. I'm not talking about the sequels. I was talking about this one, the sunshiny ending with the hug and the kiss, and that's where you're just like, oh, really?
Yeah, it would have been better.
We don't have to be full on nihilistic, but god damn it, we don't have to pretend like,
but that's the Max ending.
Yeah,
that's a wine. Maybe that's a Weinstein input.
Could be, Yeah,
I
have not seen any and I do like some of the movies that have come out of Miramax. I dig period pieces. I had to perform that crap on stage. But when they have a semi-happy ending or a happy ending almost at every one.
That's true. They took Clerks and forced
could have been Miramax science fiction.
Dante live.
The Miramax science fiction a happy ending. Boom.
I think it would have been I think it would have been a stronger flex. One, if Chewie had died.
There you go.
Yeah,
the boy, and it would have been a stronger flex if the boyfriend had died.
I agree.
If Mira Sorvino had been the sole survivor,
yes,
that would have been okay.
Right, because what did she lose in the end? What did she lose, even though she unintentionally created this bad thing, this bug? Nothing happened to her. It was like, oh, it's okay. You went and fixed it.
Yeah, the boys die. Josh Brolin dies. Charles Dutton dies. Giancarlo Giannini dies. No one that she's really closely attached to.
Right.
It would have been a much stronger flex. Kill off Chewie with his father. Because I wanted Giancarlo Giannini to live. I like that character. I always like him. I liked him in Casino Royale. He was Rene Mathis, the liaison to James Bond in the Montenegro scenes, and he was great in the second one. When he died in Quantum of Solace, I was like, fuck, did they kill him? Because
Yep.
Bond's allies like never get killed, like that. I was like, fuck.
Yeah, for all the working class, up with the working class stuff throughout this whole movie. In the end, it just seems like all the working class people sacrificed, and the scientists, the uptown people, walked away, scot free.
Actually, Mike, the way you said it, if she had lost her fiance or boyfriend or whomever,
partner or whatever,
and the young boy died, I mean, when F. Murray Abrams turned around and said, "You saved my grandchildren," yeah, but now you just lost another kid. And
she should have lost her boyfriend, but was forced to take care of the kid, Chewie, because he lost his father. That would have made more sense to me.
And it would have been a truer science fiction ending.
I don't see what the. Go ahead. I'm sorry. John,
no, it would have been the balance of karma. She did the one act which caused this, and okay, you got to pay for it a little.
Let's face it, Denise Richards and Gary Busey's kids should have gone down in that tunnel with their space guns and started blowing away the bugs. That is how that movie should have ended if I was writing it.
Jesus Christ.
Well, if you think about it, Gary
from Predator 2, yeah. All right.
The red-haired kid did look a little bit like Gary Busey's son. If you think about it, it's the same dental work.
Yeah, but no space guns.
No space guns.
Those are, that's
valid points.
Those are. Well, I mean, I would recommend watching it. As much as we're bagging it a bit at a time, it's a Guillermo Del Toro movie, which I said is better than, I'd say, 60 to 75% of anything that the worst Del Toro movie is better than the other crap that they put out there. Hold on a second. Eric asks, are the sequels any good? I don't know. They were direct to DVD. I'm not betting my grandmother on them being worth a damn. Maybe at some point, but you know me, I'll put it in for 10 minutes. I'll be like, what the hell is this? And I'll pop it out. But maybe one of these days down the road, I'll give it a try. They have nothing to do with Del Toro, and I think none of the other actors are returning.
No, I don't think they do.
No. So this was one of Mira Sorvino's. She didn't make it through the 90s. This was 97. And she didn't make it through the 90s. So
if you get a chance, you probably didn't watch the show, but I did catch the one about 10 years ago, 12 years ago. That TV show, House. She was somebody who was in the North Pole. And
was she?
And it was the House character and her. There's even a scene where he tells her, you have to get naked to examine her. And you see nothing because it was television. But him and the actor who plays House, that it was a master class on acting. Because even across the room, they were connecting and everything else. And it was like, I don't know how to put this, but goddamn, this is a good one.
She's stunningly beautiful, man.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's that one scene where she's just like sitting on the bathtub and she's in that little nightie, and you're just like, holy shit, because you haven't seen her in 20 years. You haven't really, she was just gorgeous. You're like, fuck, man, she was beautiful. But no longer with us, or at least on any sort of regular basis in an acting movie and in any sort of movies. Because I mean, like we were talking about, I think before we went on, those movies that she was in were very enjoyable. I love Romeo and Michelle's.
Yeah.
Janine Garofalo stole the movie, but I mean, she was great in that. But I also liked her very much in The Replacement Killers. Chow Yun-fat and Michael Rooker were in that. That was a great action movie. You wouldn't expect her to be able to hold her own in like a John Woo action movie. She was fantastic.
Tarantino talked her into that.
That's a great movie. I own that on DVD. I love The Replacement.
She was, the rumor has it, but I've never been able to confirm it. She was this close to being in Kill Bill instead of Uma Thurman.
She's got nicer feet.
She the point about it was no, she was dating Quentin Tarantino, and the Tarantino movies are produced by Miramax.
Yep.
And all of a sudden she was gone. Or out of contention. And now this again could be just gossip or whatever. But in my head I went, well, that would make sense then. If she pissed off the wrong people.
Yep.
Which is a shame because she's great. She won an Oscar for her first film with Woody Allen.
Oh yeah, that's
like the prostitute. I can't remember what it was called.
Mighty Aphrodite. Yeah, you're right. Mighty Aphrodite. Yeah. Shit, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
She won an Academy Award.
She won an Academy Award for supporting actress, and she was fantastic.
Yeah,
Funnier than hell. Different voice. I mean, really adopted a character. Yeah. It was fun. I mean, I do not get me wrong. I have. I'm an old man with blood still pumping in my veins, so I can understand cute women. But she was more than just a very pretty face. She was a hell of an actress.
Yeah, she was good.
She was good. Type deal.
She was good in this.
Yeah,
well, she never was able to emerge from the it girl phase of her career. She sort of went out during that.
Yes, I think she was still in her 20s.
There is a movie which I find ironic. It was Mira Sorvino and Ashley Judd playing Marilyn Monroe.
Oh.
Ashley Judd was when she was the young actor starting out, and then when she changed her name to Marilyn Monroe, it was Mira Sorvino.
Hey, what movie is that?
It's called Marilyn and Norma Jean.
All right.
It was like an HBO film. And it's funny because, like, if she's alone, you would see the Ashley Judd character, so it was like her psyche. Talking a really interesting movie on that was, and I believe it's called Norma Jean and Marilyn. Like 2002, 2003 was HBO.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I was surprised. I was really surprised how much I enjoyed it.
Well, there is one thing. For a split second, there was one. I'm not even going to get into it. It's a halfway decent scene, but I'm not even. I was going to say the stairs scene at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was well shot.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't tell if one of the mimics had made it up the stairs, and then it turns out it's the boyfriend, and it goes
Hey,
happy joy.
Josh Brolin's death.
She was in an episode of Star Trek Next Generation.
No kidding.
Huh. No kidding. I'll have to look. Okay.
Josh Brolin's death, when he's trying to climb through the hole and you're thinking he's going to get away with it, you never see what happens to him. You just see the blood come out of his mouth.
Yeah.
I love that as a scene because you're like, first off, what the hell happened to him, and where did they stab him?
Well, first, what's most important is that we know they're not going to kill Norman Reedus under any circumstances. You're going to have to come a lot harder at Norman Reedus. Just with some mimic bugs, he's got something for that ass. So that ain't happening. All right. I think that this is as good a place as any to close out for a fun discussion about a fun movie. By and large, and I'd like to maybe get to some more Del Toro in the future. Maybe we'll do some Hellboy.
Did you do Cronus, Mike? And I didn't see it.
No, we should do Cronus. Cronus is a fantastic movie, and that's another one. Okay, I guess Bill didn't want to talk to us anymore. He got himself out of the stream.
Well, once I said Cronus.
Yeah, I guess. I all right, don't bring that movie up, jeez.
Absolutely.
If you don't want to talk about Kronos, you don't have to leave the stream.
What me?
Fuck. All right, so this is as good a place as any. No, we got to get to some more Del Toro, whether it's Kronos or Pacific Rim or Hellboy or any Blade 2. Rod and I covered the first Blade. I'd love to talk that second Blade movie.
So would I.
Ron Perlman is fucking great in that movie. Another Del Toro regular. That one guy who's like the king of the vampires, who's like eating gelatinous blood and swimming in like a pool full of blood, and you're just like, holy shit! Like Del Toro's going for it. Again, Norman Reedus is in that again.
Blade 2, man, it's one of my favorite vampire movies, hands down. It's great.
It's good shit. Hey, for everybody here, you two. Later on, one of the last cold and scaries we're going to do is a movie called Let the Right One In, and it's on Hulu. Please join me for that one. It recently may have surpassed for me personally the number one spot, which previously was held by Herzog's Nosferatu.
Ooh.
It might be a perfect movie. And I'd like to get your opinion on it. I take it you guys haven't seen it yet. It's a Swedish film. Don't watch that fucking American bastardized version that they did.
Let
That
me in.
Swedish version gets it fucking
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
Oh,
let
yeah.
the right one in.
I'm gonna watch it after Prophecy tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, that reminds us, tomorrow we are back in the stream with some Gregory Wyden doing some epic shit with the Archangel Gabriel, Lucifer, and Glenn Danzig. Let's not talk too much about Glenn Danzig. We'll be back tomorrow night at 8 p.m. For Gregory Wyden's The Prophecy. My thanks to John Funny Shoes Alvarez and Bug Bangle. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace out.
Peace out.